Just saying I can't do it means that you haven't done it. You can do it. Let's show you how we're gonna finish this off with clear coat. All right, we've spent the better part of our day cutting our plywood down into shelf boards, edge banding them, sanding them down, and getting them ready for the most exciting part now, which is the clear coat finish. This is gonna do two things. One, the obvious is it's going to protect the wood, it's going to seal the wood, give it some scratch resistance, and two, which I think is more important, it's gonna make the wood look beautiful. We've just saved all of this time and money by doing these shelves ourselves for our closet system. Now we're gonna make it look beautiful, and it's gonna have our signature on it. It's gonna have your signature on it when you are finished doing this. So a product that is very readily available at most big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, things like that, is going to be by a company called Minwax. You've probably seen this company if you've done some staining projects. If you're familiar with this product, then I need to say no more, but if you're not, that's what I'm going to talk about right now. This is called Polycrylic. It's polyacrylic. So this is going to be a water-based product. It's not going to be harmful. It's going to be low, if not no, VOCs. You're not going to have to worry about wearing a mask while you're working with this product. I always recommend that you follow whatever the safety guidelines are on the product that you're using, but in this case, it's going to be a very mild product, very low odor to work with here. Always give it a good stir when you get a product fresh out of the can, or if you've just come from the store like I have, you're able to shake this thing up on your own. You don't really have to do a whole lot of stirring to it. So guys, with polycrylic, it's going to look kind of milky white. That's when it's going to go on. It's going to have this translucence kind of effect to it. When it dries, it is clear. In this case, we're going with the gloss finish, and that is simply because I already started applying with a previous can that was already gloss. But you could use satin or flat if you wanted to. We'll talk about this product in another video about all the other versatility to it as far as pigmenting it, coloring it, and using it for different projects. But right now, today, we're going to just get some clear coat on here. Now, we've got 20 shelves to do, which means we're going to be doing the top and the bottom and the edge on all of these. So how are we going to manage this in, say, a garage or in a studio apartment if that's where you're doing it? Well, quite simply, I'm going to show you guys this area that I'm working in right here is not much bigger than maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Now, 8-foot plywood, you want to have a little bit of room for moving around with this, but I'm going to show you guys what you could do with simple construction horse setup. In my case, behind me, I'm going to be using my workbench as one set of horses, and in front of me I've got my Bora centipede, which is just a fancy shop table. Sets up about 6 feet by 4 feet, so I can put a sheet of plywood on it, and that's what I'm going to be doing. If you're doing this on your own, I recommend just getting a couple sets of horses, running a couple 2x4s across them, and you'll see what I'm going to do. After I finish one board, I'm going to simply turn as if it was on a 2x4. In my case, I'm using a little bit more than a 2x4, right? And I'm just going to set it down off the side. I'm going to do the next board and set it down, and the next board and set it down. I'm going to work this way until I've gotten about maybe 8 or 10 of them done, and then I'm going to start to move those out of the way as they dry and start the next process over. So let's get going on the first one here and show you guys the application process. Again, we're going to be using the Minwax polycrylic, but this application process is the same that can be used for even the higher quality professional grade products like this General Finishes high performance top coat. This will be available at more of your specialty woodworking stores like a Woodcraft or even possibly on Amazon. See if we can get a link for you guys down below for that. I'm going to say when you get into the higher quality stuff though, we're really going to recommend using a sprayer HVLP. Check out the links below for another video on that. But let's get into the Minwax polycrylic. Simple guys, 4 or a 6-inch microfiber roller. That's the big secret to it right there. And give this thing a quick pour right into our tray. We're not using a big tray here because it's a smaller job. We'll give the thing a quick pour there and make sure you got your spill protection set up. Everybody's got their own preference on how they roll. When it comes down to it, it's just like rolling a wall. I like to drag a little paint or finish up the ramp here and just slowly push it back down the ramp as we get it off that roller there. Now this first roll is going to be soaking up a lot into this microfiber roller here, but we're just going to want to get the finish on the board. Nothing fancy to it, just rolling it back and forth. The reason I say just get the finish on the board is because this first coat is going to get soaked into the wood relatively quickly. I mean, you can almost do a few passes and it's already starting to dry up. Now, depending on where you are in the country, humidity is going to be an issue. Humidity and temperature affect your dry time. Higher humidity is going to prolong your dry time. Higher temperatures also speed up your dry time though. So if you can luck out and you get a little bit higher temperature, and then you can get lower humidity, you're gonna dry nice and quick. But somewhere around that 70-degree point is great. Spring projects are fantastic indoors. Obviously it's low odor. Again, you're not gonna really have to worry too much about this. And as you saw, I just rolled one coat on and one edge. I'm gonna lift this guy up out of the way, move it down over here onto my horses, and bring the next board in right away. I will start to run out of space, so at some point here, I'm gonna have to move these cans that I've got set up just to show you guys the process. But once I do that, we'll jump into the time lapse again and just show you guys getting 20 of these boards done as quickly as possible, right? We wanna get one coat on. Like I said, low humidity on a day like today, where I'm at, it's gonna soak up really quickly, dry really quickly. We might be 30 minutes in between the first coat and the second coat. I'll show you what we're gonna do to sand in between though too. It's gonna be a real quick sanding with some high grit sandpaper just to knock down any of the bubbles that might be forming, bird's eyes, which we shouldn't have too much because we're going on with a fairly thin coat. You know, it's not a heavier finish. If you do put on your finish too heavy and it takes too long to dry, you can start to pit. See that pitting in the finish, and not something that you want in the finish ultimately. And there you have it, really quick. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, it's hard to see on camera, but it's almost drying as fast as I can roll it on. So, all right, we're gonna jump into the time lapse so I can move these cans out of the way and just get this stuff burned out really quick for you guys. So I'm just about at that point where I'm gonna run out of space. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys on this next board the application process one more time. And then I'm gonna work on moving all these out of the way, get the other stack in here so I can get one coat on them. Once I've got one coat on all of these boards, on both sides, I'm going to show you guys the sanding process. It's a really simple process. It's even easier than when we sanded down the edge banding edges there. It's just going to be a quick hit, knock down any fur that's on there, and then throw a second coat on it. We might get lucky enough that 2 coats does the job. Again, this is a closet that we're dealing with here, right? If this was a custom cabinet project, we'd probably be pushing into 3 or 4 coats. But in this case, we're not dealing with a lot of high traffic. It's mostly clothing and maybe some boxes, some storage, things like that. So in this case, we might be able to get away with 2 coats. We're looking for a main objective of protectability and sealing up that wood. Obviously, the beauty is going to be in the first coat, so we'll be good with that. But let's move on. I'll show you guys this process one last time here. With this polycrylic, or maybe you're using the General Finishes high performance top coat, I'm just going to simply, with a microfiber 6-inch roller, I'm dragging some finish up the ramp of the tray here. I'm pushing it back down as I load up my roller, and then I'm just kind of going to town on it. As you guys saw from the time lapse, you know, it's really just one dip for a half of a board and then the next dip for the next half of the board. So let's get going on this half here and finish this guy off so we can move on. But you can see it's going on quick. The humidity's nice and low today. We're getting kind of lucky. It'll dry up quick. And then I wanted to point out how I finished the edge one last time here. It's kind of important to pay attention to that because if you put on too much, you're going to end up with a bunch of drip marks. I just like to take the roller and just kind of get it rolling along that edge there. You can see it spinning just a little bit. It's not creating such a deep groove in the foam roller itself. Just lightly rolling that on there, getting that application going, and then we can come back and finish off that one edge. We haven't hit the other side yet, so before we get to that side, if we did end up getting drip marks, we can knock it down really quick with sandpaper. If the finish isn't completely dry yet, we can knock it down with our hands even, and then get that first coat on there. right, so we've got one coat of finish on both sides and the edge of our shelves here. Now it's time that we're gonna sand down this coat so that we can apply a second coat. Now we're not talking about sanding all the way through this or knocking these edges down like we did before. This is actually gonna be really simple. Just like I talked about those pro packs of sandpaper before, you're gonna wanna grab some 220 grit. Nothing fancy, not 400. We're not looking for a glass piano finish on here. Again, they're shelves too, right? We wouldn't want something so slippery that the books would be sliding right off of it. In this case, we're gonna cut our sheet into quarters and we're just gonna do a light dusting. And you guys will actually be able to hear in the microphone the difference in this roughness in about 2 seconds when we knock this coat down. And then we'll apply a second coat, and like I said, I think we'll be able to get away with just 2 coats. Applying that second coat will be a little bit heavier, but it's not gonna be soaking into the wood, so it's gonna give a lot more protective buildup. Question I get asked a lot is, how do you get the finish to look so good even though you're rolling it on so fast? And my answer to that is simply let the product do the work. Just like you would a power tool, let the power tool do the work. We put that first coat on to let it soak into the grain, really just getting it on as quickly as possible, knowing that we were going to come back, we were going to sand it down, take the fur off of it, so to speak, and smooth it out. This second coat that's going on is just going on to sit on top of a dried, finished first coat, right? So it's not going to be soaking in. This is why it's a little bit more important to pay attention to how much you're putting on, but load up that roller and move that product around. Move it around smoothly. You want to overlap just a little bit as you're rolling. You can see that I'm doing here maybe 4, 5, 6 passes, something like that, with a 6-inch roller on a 12-inch board, right? So we got some good overlap going. We're running it along our edge again, and then we'll finish off one last spot down the end there. But then the product itself is going to just level itself out. It's going to lay out. Pretty low humidity today. You can see a few boards already glistening in the sun, and we're sitting about 70 degrees. So this is pretty optimal conditions for finish work. We're talking about shelves here with a clear coat protective finish. We're not talking about some cherry or walnut stained piece that is going to show all your pigtails if you're using an orbital sander, and we'll get to those finishes in another video. But for this clear coat type of a job, just let the product do the work, whether it's this polycrylic or you're using, you know, the more professional grade waterborne products from General Finishes, like their high performance top coat, and they will level out, they'll cure up, and you'll be sitting pretty with nice durable shelves. All right, so now that we got that second coat of finish done, we're gonna wanna hit these with 400 grit sandpaper. I know that seems high and excessive, but really all it is just taking that final finish coat down to the smoothest it can be. You can even hear this just in the sound of the microphone here, the smoothness here versus that little bit of coarse roughness right there. But this is simple, guys. It's just a quick little hit, you know, just running it back and forth. Kind of like I'm dusting a table. That's really all it is, and it's about the same pressure too. Imagine that you just sprayed your kitchen table with some vinegar water or whatever it is that you use to clean your hardwood table, and you're just dusting it off. That's really all it is, and now you can tell how smooth that finish comes out.